our club. And it really, really is wonderful. It really is. Not only about what we do, but the friendship we have here. We're a family, and it really gets the message out. So I just wanted to further to our guest speaker this morning. She's going to be talking about young kids and the problems they have and what's been going on with depression and mental illness and that. And I just wanted to share with you who weren't here, when I did my vocational speech, I wanted to do it on a cop story, and I wanted to make it interesting. And of course, we got into the part of my career where depression overtook me. And you saw the problems I had up here talking. Actually, I have to share with you something. It's the first time I've ever talked to a group openly about what happened to me. And you saw the problems I had. And my goodness, if I had trouble talking about it, how do these young people cope with it, right, Amanda? So we're looking forward to this morning. We're going to hear a lot more about that. We've got Let's Talk is coming up on very soon. But we're not out of the woods yet. And Amanda and I were just commenting. When this is all over and we're back to normal, there'll be a lot of people who will never really get back to normal. And some of those will be young kids who've had a rough time. So we look forward to your presentation. So Tim, that's it for me this morning. And thanks everybody for what you do in Rotary and what you do at other Rotary, because I know there's people here who are very busy in the community doing other things. So thank you to all of you. Thanks, Tim.
And thank you, Al, for everything you do for Rotary. We really appreciate it. And who's introducing? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Amanda Fellows currently holds the role of Program Manager, Community Development at Catholic Family Services of Simcoe County. She has worked for CFSSC for 12 years, both in frontline work and in management. Over the course of her career, Amanda has supported the development of many different programs, including building a menu of adult workshops and in-school workshops for youth, a friendly visiting program, slow cooker club program for older adults, health and wellness workshops for working professionals, and most recently designed a system navigation service for youth across the county. Amanda's skills include program designs and development, facilitation, community engagement, building strategic partnerships, and a genuine passion for community work. Welcome, Amanda. Thank you.
The earliest meeting I've had in a long time, so it was a good feeling though to get up, get out of the house, and be in person, which is really nice because we've done so much virtual stuff over the last couple of years. So thanks for having me this morning. So my name is Amanda Fellows, and yes, I've been with Catholic Family Services 12 years this year, which feels like a super long time when I hear you say it. I'm just curious, kind of as we get started, I am going to focus a lot on youth call today and our youth mental health services, because like Al said, youth mental health is a growing issue. I mean, there was increased rates of anxiety and depression with youth before COVID, and that has certainly amplified. And what it's imperative that we have community services that can support where they're at in the moment and not have these massive wait lists for youth looking to get access to services. And so Youth Call has been a real win for us as an organization in terms of being able to provide on-the-ground support and being really responsive to emerging needs. So I just was curious though about how much you know about Catholic Family Services in general. Has everybody heard of the organization before I showed up today? Okay, and I say that only because I usually like to start presentations by dispelling the myth that you have to be Catholic to come to Catholic Family Services, because that's, and as Rotarians, as people in community, we're always looking to our partners to really advocate for that, because when you tack the name Catholic in front of it, people automatically exclude themselves for service. And so when I think about our funders, we've been in the community, since 1979. So what we do, the core of what we do is mental health work. So for a really long time, before community programs really became a thing for us, what we were primarily focused on was individual, couple, and family counseling. And so about 10 or 12 years ago, we launched walk-in clinics, which was also a way to address the need for people. We used to just provide kind of that ongoing counseling support. And then when we launched the walk-in clinics, people could just walk in and get a counseling session for free that day, which was huge. We diverted a lot of youth, adults, older adults from emergency rooms because of that service. And so that continues today. It looks a little different with COVID because a lot of people actually just prefer virtual service, and our reach can extend more with virtual service than in person. So we still run walk-in clinics, or what we call ready to talk counseling clinics in South Simcoe, in Barrie, and Orillia, and Midland. And then we serve the rest of the county virtually 5 days a week. So coming back to that Catholic piece, these are our primary funders as an organization, and Catholic Charities actually still provides about 70% of our overall funding budget. And so we pay respect to that by continuing to have the word Catholic in our names. And truthfully, they're a big reason why we survived COVID, right? Just because their funding never wavered through that period of time. And a lot of organizations really struggled over the course of COVID with funding. We also have Ministry of Health funding. We get funding through the Ministry of the Attorney General, the Innisfil Community Foundation. I'm going to talk about them a bit more, but we're a big reason why we're able to expand our youth call program that I'm talking about today. We get funding through IRCC, United Way, and Trillium. So that's kind of the current complement of our funding. When I first started 12 years ago, we only had Catholic Charities funding. So and a bit of United Way. But the reason we've been able to grow and thrive over the last 12 years is because we've been able to diversify our funding sources, which has been huge for us. All right. And if you don't already follow us on social media, please do. Just because if you want to keep up to date on programs and things that we run, you can find all of that information on Facebook. Youth Call also has its own Instagram account if you're interested in following that or finding out more. So Youth Call specifically supports transitional aged youth. And so I'm just, because the concept of transitional age youth is a bit jargony in the social service world. Transitional age youth is often defined as 14 to 28. That varies in some places, but essentially it targets youth that are in transition. So when we think about, oftentimes we think about young people as kind of resilient, they'll be able to figure it out, but this age group, it actually needs more support than other age groups because of the consistent transitions they're going through. Right, so you think about elementary school students go to high school, that's a huge transition, it's a big change. There's a lot of mental health things that creep up for youth in grade 9. I'm gonna talk about our Talk Back to Negativity program, but we get more requests from teachers to help support grade 9 students than any other high school grade because of that massive transition and the increases of depression and anxiety in that age group. They're starting jobs, they're moving away from home, they're shifting friendships, and starting jobs like, you know, in high school, we start a job that's a big transition, and then when we're 24, we might start a big person job, right, which is a huge transition. And so all of these things continue to happen over the course of that time, which is oftentimes more draining on our mental health. Transitional age youth are at a period of life where they require more support, not less, and they have higher rates of anxiety, depression, loneliness, isolation, and stress, which is huge. So how we kind of got involved with transitional age youth first started with the North Simcoe Youth Wellness Hub. And so we all live in, I'm assuming most of you live in Simcoe County or in Innisfil. It's a huge geographic place. And as social service providers, actually providing support across that massive span is hard, right? So we don't always have funding in certain areas. And so we end up with these kind of sub-regional supports. And that happened with the North Simcoe Youth Hub. So the idea behind the North Simcoe Youth Hub was that in Midland specifically, and I hate sub-regional, I really struggle with that because there's youth all across this county that need help. And when we're offering one thing in one location, it's not necessarily equitable across the board for people who need that help. So we started with this. This is a health-funded initiative. It's primarily led by Waypoint, and there's a bunch of community service providers that help support this initiative. And essentially they were trying to create a one-stop shop for youth where they could get access to all of these services: counseling, peer support, education, mental health, substance use. They could literally walk in and get access to that. And they've done that really successfully. And so successfully that we've wanted to take that model and replicate it in other places because youth are actually getting what they need through this model. right? So it focuses heavily on coordinating services, so bringing everybody together so that we reduce redundancies, right? So because if I'm 15 and I need mental health support, I don't want to have to go to Catholic Family Services and fill out an intake form and get connected there. And they say, oh no, but you actually need Canadian mental health. And so they send me to Canadian mental health. And actually I need education support, so they're going to send me to contact. So it's what happens is you fall through the cracks in that process, right? As an adult, I get frustrated with the system, having to navigate a bunch of community partners, trying to understand what's the best fit for me, where I should go. We all have really in the box eligibility criteria. And so if I get frustrated with that as an adult, can you imagine someone who's 15, 16, 21, 22, trying to navigate that when they're already feeling depressed or they're already having issues at home or whatever that looks like. So the Youth Hub did a really great job with that. And so we took that model and we replicated it in South Simcoe with Youth Call. So Youth Call started out on a 3-year funding grant. We're actually in year 3 of that funding grant. And again, sub-regional. United Way was looking at providing services in different areas. And so we launched this program in 2020 in Bradford and Alliston. And so when we started, initially this was supposed to be exactly like the Youth Hub, a physical space where you could drop in with a bunch of partners and get the support they need. COVID obviously threw a wrench in that process for us. And so we transitioned to a live answer call, text, email service where youth could call in and get connected to a youth worker, and that youth worker would help them get connected where they needed to go, and they wouldn't drop them in the process. So they would follow them all the way through. If they needed education or employment support, then the youth worker would work with them to fill out all the paperwork and get it in and get it sorted. And as community partners, we were working together on system transformation. So this process of really needing to reduce those redundancies and holding our partners accountable to that process so that youth aren't falling through the cracks and they're getting what they need. And that has been an uphill battle for the last few years, mainly because people don't want to change, services don't want to change. And so that's a system issue that we're going to continue to fight, but we've done a pretty good job getting to where we've been. So we serve, sorry, stress ball helps me present more effectively. So we serve transitional age youth, 14 to 28 in this project. We have 6 project partners, so New Path, Canadian, CMHA, York South Simcoe, Contact, the Gilbert Center, and Youth Haven, and us. We're the lead on this project, and so we govern the work that's happened over the last couple of years. It is focused on system transformation. We started with just system navigation. The program has evolved tremendously. So now we provide counseling under the umbrella of Youth Call, even outside of what we do as an organization. There's actual counseling that happens in the Youth Call program, which has also been huge for us because our therapists, psychotherapists are busy and we weren't getting youth in as quick as we wanted to. So we changed that. And now youth are able to be seen from a mental health perspective more quickly. We also run a ton of groups and workshops, and we have a Discord server. So Discord server was new for me, but essentially it's an online platform where youth can connect and provide peer-to-peer support for one another. And then that's monitored by our youth engagement workers. And the reason that that's important, or that Discord service has been important, is because not everybody wants to pick up the phone and call someone and say, I have a problem, or I feel depressed, or I'm not happy at home, or whatever that looks like. And so this provides kind of a low barrier way for youth to come into our supports, and they can chat online with each other. And then the youth outreach workers can reach out if there's stuff that comes up, right? So we had a youth who, for example, was connected to our server for quite a long period of time, never really said much. And then one day just kind of put everything in that server about how they're feeling suicidal, their mom had died, there was all of these elements. And so because of that server though, we were able to respond to that super quickly and get that youth connected to counseling supports and other things. And so, and that youth may have never reached out if they didn't have this kind of social platform to connect on initially. And that is the llama is called Yondel, stands for Yo No Drama Llama. So we have a mascot. If you follow us on social media, you see lots of TikToks with Yondel. So since we officially launched Youth Call in February of 2021, and since then we've provided over 250 sessions of case management, counseling, and system navigation. 273 youth have been supported through our group programming. We've run 8 parent education sessions, attended by over 200 adults. We launched the Discord server. There's currently 70 youth connected to our server, but it averages 10,000 engagements a month. So what that means is youth are connecting with each other, or they're connecting with the youth outreach worker, and that's what we're measuring. So every time somebody engages, if they engage with each other or they engage with the youth outreach worker, we capture that. I think it's important to note that the Innisfil Community Foundation also helped us to support in-school programming and launch this program across other parts of the county. So from the minute we started this program, we've been saying we need to help more. We need to expand our geographic region. This is a problem. We have youth reaching out from other places. And so the Innisfil Community Foundation actually gave us funding to start serving Innisfil, which I don't understand is not why is not connected to South Simcoe anyway. The sub-regional piece really confuses me, but we had lots of youth from Innisfil calling in wanting support, and we couldn't help them. Well, we did, but we shouldn't have, because we were only funded for Alliston and Bradford. So with that funding, we were able to increase the number of youth, demonstrate a bigger impact, and then this summer we were successful with the Trillium grant, which helped us to launch this program across the county. So as it stands now, we provide youth call in all of Simcoe County, which has been such a huge win for us. The Innisfil Community Foundation was also a big part of our Talk Back to Negativity program. And so we go into high schools all across the county, and we support youth with mental health workshops. We talk about everything from the impacts of social media on your mental health, to anxiety, to depression, self-esteem. And since January of 2021, we've supported over 5,500 youth through that program. So it's helped us to extend a big reach. So we've worked with partners to establish strong working relationships and coordinated care, and that's what we continue to do through that program. So coming in 2023, so we're establishing a new governance structure because of the growth, which includes, we just had a project team, and the project team's been doing this work. The new governance structure will include a steering committee, a service provision working group, and a youth advisory. That's a big piece for us. We're still looking for 3 more youth to join our youth advisory committee. So if you know anyone, I brought the posting, it's here. It looks lovely, there's a llama on it. And please have them come and join the youth advisory. We currently employ 2 youth ambassadors, one from Innisfil and one from Bradford, and they have provided the youth voice for the last year, which has been a piece that's been missing for us, because as service providers, we think we know what we need to do in order to support young people. And oftentimes those youth ambassadors tell me that, no, that's not what we should be doing. We should be doing other things. And so I've really appreciated their feedback. So they work on the initiative with us, and they also provide counsel to the project team. I'm excited about the new governance structure because we're expanding partnerships. So the more partners and services we can bring into the fold for this service, the better, or the more impactful youth service will be. We're also going to be focused on poverty-focused programming. So our top 3 kind of presenting issues for youth coming in are mental health, employment, and housing. So we have a lot of homeless youth who connect with the service because they can't find a place to live, or that kind of their couch surfing, those types of things, which has become a huge struggle. And so we're going to be focused on poverty related programming. We just launched drop-ins, so places for youth to drop in physically. So in Innisfil, we're at the Innisfil YMCA. So we run our drop-in there. That just started this month. A few times a month, we're at the Bradford Library and the Collingwood Library, and the Orillia Youth Center, and then we use our own space in Barrie. So that'll be places where youth can drop in, just connect with each other, connect with the youth workers. And not everybody loves virtual service, so it's a good place for people to physically connect. And we'll be focused on social rec activities and youth engagement. So, I mean, understandably, we've been hyper-focused on mental health just because that's been what's coming through our door. But we do want to bridge or branch out and really work on those social rec pieces, because that's what the youth are asking for, is other ways to connect. So, I'm a naturally fast talker. I'm sure that was overwhelming. Here's our drop-in calendar, also a llama. You can find that on our social media. So I'm curious if anybody has any questions.
You have a big staff.
We have, so on the youth call team, we have a transitional age youth lead and 2 workers. So not enough people, but we're making it work. Yes.
Great presentation, thank you. You said YMCA, was that the Innisfil YMCA that you
Yes.
dropped into?
Yeah.
Have you got a drop in at the library here at all?
Not the library here.
Okay.
And honestly, and some of that is just staffing capacity. Like now that we serve all of the county, we really only have 2 youth outreach workers who are staffing all of those drop-ins on top of groups and Discord server and individual support. So we had to pick and choose where we would end up.
We have a hand up online, Debbie.
Hi, Amanda. I'm
Hi.
just questioning your, you may have hit it already and I just wasn't paying attention. What is the age of your youth?
So we serve 14 to 28. I
Okay.
would say the bulk of, like statistically, the bulk of our youth are anywhere between 16 and 24. I would say that's the bulk of our clientele, other than we serve a lot of the younger age youth in schools and things like that. But I would say most of our youth are somewhere between 16 and 24.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So Amanda, sorry, you go ahead.
Just wondering, you mentioned the talk back to negativity. What's the model? So you're going into schools, is that assemblies? Are you running class size workshops, self-appointed, self-identified? Like what's the model there?
Yeah, so we're typically running in-class workshops. We've done assemblies before. Before COVID, we were physically in schools doing it. Now we do it virtually. So sometimes we have classes joined from a bunch of different schools all at the same time for a specific topic. But it is teachers who identify a theme within their classroom, and then we go in and address the theme. So we have 8 workshops we run, and we send it, teachers get that information at the beginning of the school year, and then they just kind of determine what fits best for their class. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So can I just follow up on that?
Yeah.
Amanda, on Katie's question. So the Board of Education offers a program called Safe Talk.
Yeah.
That the schools run through. I think that is their program or something. But you said that the teachers reach out to you if they think there's a situation in their classroom.
Yeah.
Does what you offer, does it match Safe Talk? Is it something different? Like do both need to run, or do you have any idea?
I think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, Anne, but Safe Talk is more about like how to talk to one another about mental health, isn't it?
It's mental health and I think suicide prevention.
Yeah, so ours is a bit different in the sense that it's education specific to an issue. So we go in and talk about depression, what that looks like for young people, and then we focus heavily on community support. So where you can get connected outside of the school,
Okay.
or we might go in and just talk about self-esteem, or we might go in and talk about healthy relationships. So it's all specific to, it's depression, like when Safe Talk is really about creating less stigma around mental health and encouraging youth to talk to one another about that, or if a friend comes to them and says, hey, I feel like I want to kill myself, you know, how youth can support each other through that process. Whereas we take a more preventative approach to that, not necessarily that intervention. Someone wants to die in the moment, how do you talk to them about that? Ours is, here's some education around depression so you can identify if this may be an issue for you. Because a lot of young people may feel sad for days, and adults tend to think, well, that's just a normal teenage thing, you know, or they'll be fine, they have issues with their friends. And so we really want to showcase, these are some of the symptoms of depression. This is what it could look like in your life. And if you're experiencing any of this, you need to get ahead of it and talk to somebody about it. So that we take a prevention approach from that perspective. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, so when you talk about themes that the teachers ask for, is that what you mean? Those labels to those criteria of mental health issues?
Yeah, so they may have a bunch of students in their class that have been talking a lot about mental health or depression, or they come to them and ask for resources, and so the teachers will then just ask us to come in and do a kind of a broad sweeping presentation. Or like we get a lot of gym classes where they work in curriculum, they focus on healthy relationships and what that looks like. And so then they want that workshop in their classroom because it gives an opportunity to have a more fulsome conversation around boundaries and, you know, all of those pieces. So the most requested one is social media. So the impacts of social media on your mental health, we do that one a ton. Yeah.
It's kind of a twofold question. Are you affiliated also with places like Center for the Children and those, you know, because they also kind of deal with a lot of that grief side of things and depression.
Yeah.
But also the Georgian College, like is there a connection with them? I didn't notice their logo or anything up there as well,
So the logos on the board are formalized partnerships, like, so we have memorandums of understanding and there's things those people are supposed to do. We have informal partnerships all over the place. So Georgian College, for example, like we have working relationships, we sit at different tables with them, we would send all of our information, promotional information to them, they would refer clients to us. So we have those referral relationships, the same with Season Center, Rainbows. So we work really, as an organization, we work really hard at community partnership because we know it's the key to success in terms of getting people the support they need. So we're everywhere.
Yeah, it's just that I know the downtown campus on the board and on the live TV screen. I've never seen anything about your organization on it. So, and I've been there for what, I've been in college for 22 years, but at the downtown campus, we've been there for 6.
Okay.
So that might be something to follow up on because we are so isolated in that campus.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
just a thought.
Yeah, and I mean, that's great feedback, thanks, Shannon. I think we work with student success a lot, in the mental health crew, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it gets everywhere it needs to get. So thanks for that.
Has there ever been any thought of changing that mental health tagline to something else? Like, to me, that just, like, that's a big dash on the head to say. And as an employer, if I have one more, sorry to be so, I don't know what the word is, but unpolitical or whatever. If I have one more staff member that comes and says, oh, I can't do that. And it's like, oh my God, like, so as an employer myself, dealing with those issues, like trying to deal with people. Every word I use is politically incorrect, but my day and age, it wasn't called a mental health issue, it was a life issue. It was learning how to deal with it, and maybe my grandmother had the right idea because it was, oh, you're feeling sad today, here's a toothbrush, go clean. Maybe that's why I'm a cleaner now. But that was, I mean, literally, she had you talking to your toothbrush, okay, what's bothering you today, Marguerite? And then she would the bathroom.
A lot of questions.
I don't understand you better.
Yes, so I, like, to me, part of the issue, we label everything too much. Like, I have people come to work with me, the first thing out of their mouth is, I suffer from depression, so you have to, and I was like, well, that's a bad way to start an interview, because, you know.
Yeah.
So I think people are too labeled. I'd like to see that mental health thing. Because look at, like, our first responders and all that stuff, the nurses at the hospital, they all suffer probably way more trauma than the rest of us have ever seen. But even my sister, who's a nurse at the hospital, doesn't refer to it as a mental health issue, because it's to imply that there's something wrong up here and there's nothing wrong up here. It's learning how to deal with it. We just don't teach people how to.
Yeah, and I think in some of the workshops that we do, part of it is understanding, what is normal versus what is not, right? So anxiety, for example, there's normal amounts of anxiety, right? I might get anxious before I do a presentation for Rotary. That's a normal amount of anxiety. It doesn't necessarily mean I am diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. So in schools, we do a lot of that education too around this is normal, and this is when it's not so normal and when you need to get support. And how do you build resiliency skills? So we talk a lot about all of those pieces. And I think the reality is that there's a lot of people in this world today that just don't have resiliency skills for many reasons. And some of it is like family issues. Some of it is, they come with crumblier foundations, and it makes it harder to manage those things, right? So, and I think people are talking about it more too, just because the stigma, people are feeling more confident to talk about those things.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for our generation, like some of the older ones here, we never talked about mental. If you talked about mental health, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
Nobody would come anywhere near you. We came from a generation where you just had to get on with it, right? Just suck it up, get on with it, don't talk about it.
It's just the sheer numbers.
But I think it's now younger people are more comfortable talking about mental health because it has been made more acceptable. When I was a kid, if the words mental health were ever mentioned, that person ran. I'm not having anything to do with that person. Whereas now I think younger generation, it's more acceptable to talk about their feelings and what the anxieties they're going through. Whereas for our generation, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah, it's not just that, it's also in the past, it even still happens today, business and insurance and all those different things, you got to be careful. sometimes what you say, because you're always terrified that a boss is gonna get rid of you because of this, or your insurance company is gonna jack your rates up because of this. So knowing that there's more systems in place to help people through that will make it easier for people to, on whole. Yeah, get the help they need.
Yeah.
So, fantastic.
There's one more question. Did you come? No, okay.
Oh, I'm just taking it all in.
Do you notice a big difference in how the youth from like 14 to 28 talk about mental health?
Yeah, huge difference. And it's interesting, so younger youth are much more apt to talk about where they're at than the other end of that spectrum. It's like as we get older, there's a transition in terms of how we view mental health, right? Because in high school, as service providers, we go in and say, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. Here's all the things you can do. Take safe talk, do this, do this, do this. And then they transition to workplaces who have high expectations. You know, universities have high expectations, you know, and we decide we're not going to talk about it as much anymore because we want to be successful, then we need to rein it in, right? So yeah, 100%, there is a big transition. So even though we're reducing that stigma, it still very much exists. And yeah, it's a problem. Well, if I even think about my own personal experience, you know, like last spring, we had a ton of growth. So, and I probably am oversharing, but at the agency, I went from I was a staff of one person up until 2020, and now I have a team of 7, which is huge. So in 2 years, my team grew and my programs grew and everything kind of ballooned. And so in the spring of 2020 or 2022, sorry, I really was starting to experience those classic symptoms of burnout. And I had intense feelings of anxiety, and I knew I needed a break, and I hesitated for like 2 months around asking my boss if I could take extended vacation because I was worried about what she might think. Like, will that all of a sudden make me not competent at my job? You know, will she think that she needs to take stuff away because I can't manage what I have on my plate? And I work in mental health and have spent the last 7 years talking about self-care and burnout with compassion fatigue, and I have the best boss ever. So all of those things still pushed me to hesitate to say something because I was worried about what people would think. And I remember when I said to my boss, she's like, of course, you know, you do what you need to do. Like, anyway, it's still there, very much there. Yeah.
As one person, who produced the model to make it 7? How did that happen?
Funding happened. So as one person, I was doing some of this work already, but a fraction of it. And so we have this kind of mentality sometimes in social services that you just do it in hopes that things work out in the end. And over the course of those 2 years, things just worked out in the end. So for example, we run a program called Mature Minds, which is essentially for seniors or older adults. And that program is a lot about, we had a friendly visiting program for a long time. So we had 80 matched seniors and older and volunteers. And so I was managing all of the volunteers and managing all of the older adult matches. And I was doing that project off the side of my desk. So I literally was working really long hours to make that whole project happen. And then at the beginning of 2020, Catholic Charities gave us an extra $100,000 a year to staff an FTE, and now Jenna Wickens runs that program for us, and she's taken it and ran. So she does a lot of ageism advocacy and the Slow Cooker Club and a bunch of really cool stuff. And so you make it work, and then people take notice of the program because we work really hard on evaluations and outcomes and demonstrating impact. And then when we apply for things, it's easy for people to say, yeah, I want to fund that because the impact is there. So we start small and then we hope for the best. Yeah, yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's the goal for 5 years? The dream.
The dream.
Yeah, what's the dream?
The dream, I mean, I have different dreams across different programs. So if we're talking about youth call specifically, my dream is that we would have one county-wide hub that, so we're not having different funded areas, different funded programs. We would have one preferably health-funded hub that serves the entire county, and all partners are a part of the work that happens there. If I'm talking about things like Mature Minds, my hope is to increase Jenna's staff team so that we can do even more, because she does a lot, and I'd like to do more of that anti-ageist work and stuff around shifting culture and how we view value in older adults in our community. She does a ton of it already, but it would be really great to do even more of that work. So really, I'm pretty content. I feel like from a community programs perspective, we're serving all the age groups and we're doing all the things. It's just about how do we extend our reach, and we need staffing capacity to extend reach. Yeah.
You just made me think of something when you said the talking. There's, what's the guru guy, chocolate?
Yeah, Deepak
Oh,
Chopra.
Deepak Chopra.
Yeah.
So he's got this, apparently kids have no issue talking to robots. So he's got a website, believe it or not, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's something about love. And it's all about self-care. It's all about self-care. And the kid's phone, he started it specifically for kids. The phone, it's well, it's not, sorry, it's a computer thing. And it talks to them. I don't know how you train a bot to do that, but apparently you talk to it and it talks back to you and it tells you, gives you some help.
That's scary.
Chat GPT, it's new AI technology they have out.
Oh,
Yeah, it's unnerving sometimes.
Yeah.
Andrea, you had a question.
How do we get the parents involved? So something similar to what she had asked about employers being involved. Like I have a 16-year-old, 15, soon to be 16-year-old. Also in the generation that I grew up, it was the same thing. We don't talk about it. We had our feelings. There's no communication between parents. It was also a religious thing. Growing up Christian is like, well, you know, pray about it. God will help you.
Yeah.
And then there's only so much praying and wishing that you can do for someone. They have to take the initiative to either want to help themselves or how do you get the help? How do you speak about these things? My daughter's at St. Pete, so she's also struggling with her own insecurities or self-doubts, anxiety with exams now, making friends. So all this stuff just kind of like guiding parents, or are parents able to sit in, or parents able to come into these sessions.
Yeah, I mean, once kids turn 12, they have the right to consent to service and they get all the same confidentiality privileges that everybody else does. So they, we are very big on integrating parents into support. So if the youth is comfortable having you come in, or you can also, like the phone number for youth call is also for parents, right? So we support families and youth, so parents can call in and talk to the outreach workers about how they can support their young people. And so we recognize the value and importance of family systems and how integral that is in resiliency, in understanding healthy relationships and emotion regulation. Like all these things are so vital. So we work with families together. We just respect also the youth and their autonomy in that care plan at the same time. And we try and run adult workshops on like mental health aware. We did mental health awareness, disordered eating, substance use, how to recognize mental health in your own kid and how to support them, those types of things.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
So Amanda, just to share with you a couple of things, as an old man, I was a police officer for 38 years. I had a job that was very demanding, very stressful. And, I fell apart. I attempted suicide. Locked up in the RVH hospital, mental health unit as an inpatient. I was then an outpatient for 6 months. Then I saw a psychiatrist for about 5 years. And during that time, I had a strong support from my family and my friends. But I did have friends that told me they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And when I gave my talk here, I said, I don't know how young people do. And I'm just wondering, your young people, like 14, do they go through the same thing? Do they have friends who are the same age who stay away from them? Do they have, is it the same for young people as it was for an old guy?
Yeah, it is.
Is there really any difference?
Not really. I mean, I think young people don't always have the skills to support their friends, and so it's easier to avoid it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not ill-intentioned necessarily. They just don't and they're also managing a lot of their own stuff. Right. So it's so yeah, no, it's not any different for young people.
Now, how do the young kids who are couch surfing?
Yeah.
And we support them here at Rotary. We give them Teens at Risk bag at Christmas time with goodies. Some of them the similar thing. How on earth do they deal with the same things that I dealt with? Who had all the professional help in the world, the hospital, psychiatrists, police department was wonderful. How on earth do they do it? It seems to me it's 10 times worse for a young kid than it was for me.
Yeah. Honestly, I could probably give you a professional answer, but truthfully, I honestly don't know. Like sometimes we have youth who come through and I think, I don't know how you're still going. Like, and we talk about like resilience. For me, that's actually the definition of resilience. You know, you have these kids who come from, you know, they don't have supportive parents, or, you know, they have actual like mental health disorders, and that leads to substance use, and they end up on the street and all of these things. And I honestly, I don't know. I'm amazed sometimes by the youth that come through our program, and I think I would crumble if I was faced with what I was faced with, so.
And my other question to you is what an organization and what a wonderful presentation, but that just didn't happen overnight. Do you have people behind the scenes that are helping you put this together, professional people?
Just my staff, I'm very blessed to work with an incredible staff team. We have a great clinical team of psychotherapists. We have great clinical supervisors. I have an exceptional executive director with a lot of vision and a lot of passion for supporting people who are struggling. And her vision is what's helped to grow this organization. And she's got a great leadership team.
A wonderful organization. This didn't happen overnight. This took an awful lot of work.
It took an awful lot of work. And in the 12 years I've been there, we've seen a lot of changes in the organization. And over the last 2 years, I mean, we've survived, but also thrived, which has been a really incredible thing to be a part of, because we are doing so much more in the community now, which I think is needed, just given the gravity of what people are still working with. You said, it's not going to go away, and it's not.
Yeah.
Like even in older adults, the increased rate of loneliness and isolation and the mental health implications as a result of that prolonged loneliness and isolation. Like we have more people 55 plus coming through with really severe mental health issues right now than we've ever seen in the organization. So it's
sometimes you feel, when I'm 78, so you look back on your life and you think maybe you didn't do such a great job, and it plays on you, and you're wondering if that has led to the way you are today. It's a weird.
Yeah, it wasn't you who failed, it was society.
It's a very weird thing that happens to you.
Yeah.
So the answer for me, if I can share with you, is, and my psychiatrist was, when I had a woman who she was head of psychiatry at the RPH, and she just dealt with soldiers and police officers, so she could speak the language.
Yeah.
And through her, I ended up being very involved in the community. Years ago, I had stopped drinking, which helped. However, when you stop drinking, then you're sober and you realize all the problems you have. But for the young people today, they don't have the luxury I have of the services. I find it amazing how these young people cope with it.
Yeah.
You know, we don't see the kids we send the bags to now for Christmas time, but I think of them many times.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and we, through Youth Call, we're trying to work on giving purpose, which is things that we're talking about. We have 2 youth on the youth advisory who are homeless, chronically homeless.
Yeah.
And so they'll be a part of that youth advisory to speak to poverty and what that looks like. And so, we're just doing all the things we can do. Everybody is. Rotary, we're doing what we can.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful organization, that's for sure.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Amanda. It's been a fantastic presentation. I can speak about the point that when you said you were oversharing one moment about your own, you need to do that more often. I think people who are in these positions need to do that more often. My sister-in-law is a clinical psychiatrist in Florida, and she has a psychiatrist who get PTSD and the things that you deal with. And you see things that probably most of us would never want to see in our lifetimes. So thank you for everything you do.